Hello.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Uh, I shared a little bit earlier about my experience with the sound bath, um, uh, but I did have like a hard time getting into it at first because I was very restless, and I was seeing kind of some like not so great images at first, and just having to come back to my breath over and over again until finally. Um, I guess I've been going through a lot of stuff lately and trying to reparent my inner child and working through trauma, trauma healing and things like that. And so I think she was acting up in the beginning of the sound bath. And so it was kind of like trying to calm her down. And um, and by the end, when we got into the fetal position at the end, and I could see her, or me, however you want to say that, in front of myself, just kind of uh, that's tweetable, just to see her relaxing finally at the very end was nice and peaceful. Now, when we got off, I did cry a little bit about some things. So just letting you know, like a release did come after we weren't on with other people anymore. Um, but yeah, that was kind of my experience earlier today.
Well, thanks
Um,
for sharing. And let me ask you guys, and Elizabeth, you can let us know what you think. But in terms of like online training and the difference between online training and in person, what was different about doing it online so that like you could have that space to turn off the camera and to do your thing rather than if you were in like an entire room with like a bunch of people and you didn't have that space and then everybody's going to coffee or lunch or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, how would that feel different? How was it to have that space?
I think right now, since it is kind of the beginning of all these things right now, like I just started this week, and I just recently started figuring out like what's been going on with me this whole time. And so trying to go on that portion of the healing journey as well. Like, I think I would have felt really uncomfortable being in front of a bunch of other people also doing the same thing. I probably would have run to the restroom, or, just tried to like take myself out of being in front of a bunch of strangers. Um, so that's just what I would have probably done if we had not had the option to get off afterwards.
Sure, sure. Thanks for sharing, Elizabeth. Anybody have anything
Thanks for
that
listening.
around that? Yes. Karina?
Yeah, I felt really comfortable shifting positions a bunch of times during the sound bath. I was, a lot of people have mentioned that they were feeling kind of mentally restless, but I feel like I was more physically restless. And I just kind of went with it and shifted to child's pose or like seated position or laying down on my stomach or on my back. And I felt I was still able to experience what was going on. But in a public space, I feel like I would have maybe just tried to stay still and then held more tension or something. So I was appreciative of that space.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Any thoughts? Any feelings?
If I could hop on after Karina, because I actually felt I did something similar. Like normally during sound baths, I can be super fidgety, and today I was like, don't move, but then I needed to move, so I started off in like a shavasana with my feet, with my knees together and like my feet spread out, and then like that got to be kind of uncomfortable, so then I just laid my legs down, and then like I needed to go into a reclined butterfly. And so like instead of trying to stay still and whatever, I kind of just moved through what my body was telling me to do. And I felt a lot better, even though I felt like I got a little bit mentally distracted, like I was still listening to my body and then figuring out a way to resettle. So that was something that I noticed. And then afterwards, Christine told us like if you had some type of, you know, esoteric type of experience, then maybe go outside and like stand in the grass or put your feet on the ground. And I didn't do that right away. I actually journaled. And then when I did go out of my room and I went downstairs to like rehydrate, and then I went outside and sat in the sun, and I just kind of took off my sandals and just let my feet be on the ground. And that was really, really nice. So
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dawn. I appreciate you. Amanda.
I was just wondering, I really liked all the words that she used. It didn't look like she was reading a script, but do you have any recommendations of a good script to use for a sound bath like she did?
Well, I wasn't on it, so can you tell me a little bit about what she did? I've been to hers before, but sometimes she does yoga nidra, sometimes she doesn't.
It wasn't like yoga nidra. It was just, you know, cueing us through some movement for about, I don't know how long that lasted, maybe 15 to 20 minutes.
That's all right.
But she would just throw in really beautiful, poetic, loving kind of cues here and there that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's just I think that's just Christine's style. So yeah. Feel free to rewatch it and like take some notes, you know, and use them if that's helpful for you, for sure. Awesome. Well, I am excited to be here today. This is not something that I normally teach, and in fact, this was actually something that I had planned on having another teacher teach, and she was unavailable, and so I was like, okay, I'll do it with Christine. Christine and I like working together, so it's always fun to get to collaborate with Christine. But so I'm going to talk a little bit about psychic energy and the energy in our body first before I get into techniques with bowls. And we'll probably go over the techniques with bowls tomorrow. So let me just figure out how many of you guys have singing bowls right now in your possession at home. Nope, yes, no. Nope, yes, no, yes, yes, no. Yes, yes, yes. Now I'm seeing nope, nope, see, I got you, all the things. Beautiful. Okay. So, you know, if you do have singing bowls tomorrow, we'll probably have some time to, you know, like work with different techniques. But if you don't, that's okay too. You can just take notes and sort of, you know, just sort of, you know, take it all in, right? So somebody just asked, where is the Zoom schedule? And that lives in the student folder. So you should have access to the student folder in your welcome packet that lives in the introduction on Teachable. So yeah, okay, great. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna do a little screen share here, and we'll get going. Alrighty. I have a lot of little windows going on here. Sorry, guys. All right. So again, today we're going to be talking about sound healing. And like I said, this is going to be sort of my take on it. I do work with a lot of singing bowls. I do use them in my yoga therapy sessions and in my private yoga sessions. I do use them coming out of Shavasana. I also use them when I work in cardiac rehab. So we're going to talk specifically about some of that stuff today as well. And so we'll get into it. So, you know, the idea is that the ancient yogis, they knew that we were vibrational beings, right? So we are definitely appear to be solid. We appear to have, you know, a solid structure to us, but we are not actually solid. We are a composition of molecules, atoms that have come together to create, you know, all of the different forms of matter in one experience. So there is, there's the appearance of solid matter, there's the appearance of liquid matter, the appearance of gaseous matter in our experience. And as we know from our Ayurvedic studies, our constitution or our dosha is what really allows us to be manifested through these elemental properties. So Pitta, Kapha, and Vata have elemental qualities that, either make the vibration more dense or more light, okay? So let's talk a second about that, because I've seen a few people in the chat ask about, the doshas in relation to sound healing. So if we were to, look at somebody, for example, who is Vata, Vata's frequencies are usually very high frequency. Vatas are a combination of air and ether, so air and space. And, not that they are, I'm not saying spiritually higher vibration, but just higher vibration in general. They tend to be light, wiry, long, tall, or very, very short. So there's extremes. Vatas are very extreme. And, I know that a lot of times we look at these constitutions, and I'm sure each one of you has looked at the doshas, the 3 doshas, and the doshic qualities and characteristics and thought, there's one I don't want to be, right? But the reality is we have all of these doshas in us at all the time, right? So I have elements of Pitta, I have elements of Vata, I have elements of Kapha in my body. And then there's some doshic properties that are just more strong, than maybe other doshic properties. And so that's why I manifest as like a Pitta Kapha, because that's how my elemental constitution is structured. And we know from our own experience that when we are moving through the gunas, right, going from rajas to tamas, we barely pass by sattva, rajas, tamas, we're constantly ricocheting, right? And when we're doing this, it is affecting the frequency of our vibration, right? So it shifts and changes the actual frequencies that we're dealing with on the inside. So just taking us all back to, 6th grade science here, we, like I said, appear to be solid, but what we know from quantum physics is that nothing is actually solid. And the yogis, the ancient yogis knew this too. And I'm just always fascinated by how the ancient yogis knew these real secrets of the universe, right? They knew that we weren't solid. They knew that if you split a particle in half, it would literally still behave the same way. So for example, they've done tests, quantum physics, people in quantum physics have done tests where they split a particle in half. One particle goes to one lab, another particle goes to another lab across the country. And if one particle is put under a particular amount of stress or a particular force, the other particle will respond the same way. Isn't that crazy? They've also done studies in the medical field where, like, if a part of the body is removed, like, for example, let's say there's some growth or something that needs to be removed, mastectomy, or, some organ that needs to be removed. The cells in that organ that is removed still behave the exact same way as the cells that are living and breathing in the body until they lose cellular respiration and die. So they continue to have the same frequency, the same vibration, the same behaviors, even if they're not physically connected. And so that's so cool to even think about, right? Because it really does show us that our physical bodies, our perception of our physical body is really more of an experience than it is a thing, right? We are more a verb than we are a noun, but we call ourselves nouns, right? Like, I'm going to call myself Michelle, or I'm going to call, Anna. But the truth is, I'm really an experience that Michelle is having. I'm really an experience that Anna is having. I'm not actually this, that is this container of Prakriti. So our bodies appear to be solid, but they're constantly vibrated on the cellular level. All forms of matter come together to manifest in the human form. And so this is where we're going to spend a lot of time today, is on the chakras and vibration. So the chakras are made up of plexi, multiple plexus that run through the length of the spine. So each plexus is a bundle of nerves, a bundle of blood. The blood supply has to get to the nerves, lymph, chemical pathways. And each plexus sends information. It receives from the proprioceptive receptors to the brain via the central nervous system. So central nervous system, we've got the spinal column here, we've got the brain. Peripheral nervous system is going to be peripheral nervous system includes the sympathetic, parasympathetic. So they work together, but they're a little bit different. The central nervous system is like the unconscious communication highway between our body and our outside world and our mind. So that's really what brings everything together. And if you notice here, so there are tons of plexi all through the body. And I don't want to say this is correct or this is incorrect. I don't want to say that, you know, these are hard and fast, the chakra plexuses. I was actually talking to another student who is a scientist about this a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how these different centers, you know, could be associated with one plexus versus the other. And really, I think it's all intertwined and interwoven. But each plexus sends information back to the brain that comes from the proprioceptive receptors. So we've talked about this before. Proprioception, for those of you guys who are new, proprioception is this idea that the body can read what's going on outside of it. So for example, it is your ability to know where your body is in time and space. The best example I have of this for yoga teachers is you tell somebody to get into extended side angle, and here they are in extended side angle. You're like, reach your arm forward to the front of the room. Has everybody seen this before? We've all seen this. And they're reaching back to the back of the room. They really feel like they're reaching forward, but their proprioceptive receptors aren't quite getting it. The connection's not working. And so then I have to go over and show them, and they're still reaching. And then I'm like, okay, gently bringing the arm around to the front, right? And that's why physical assist can be so important and such a benefit to the students, because sometimes our students' proprioceptive receptors are not like firing, they're not online. Our proprioceptive receptors are found in the shoulders and the pelvis and the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is one of the biggest parts of the proprioceptive system, and it actually tells us when we're safe. So, you know, we've talked about like vagal toning, and we've talked about, you know, like about how the vagus nerve, like it runs from the base of the skull all the way down to the perineum. And so it literally runs the entire length of the entire chakra system, and it connects the head to the tail in a sort of a psychic experience. And so, you know, for those of us who grew up in households that, you know, where maybe we had, you know, abuse or neglect, you know, we grew up in an area, in a place, in an environment that gave us mixed proprioceptive signals. Does that make sense? Where we were told mom and dad are safe, or family is safe, or home is even safe, but then the truth was we didn't feel safe. So there was like a cognitive dissonance, and that's where a lot of this healing work is going to start for many of our clients, is in sort of bridging that gap between the cognitive, it should be safe, and the physical, I'm not safe. And like I said, the vagus nerve plays a big role in that. And so when we're working with clients, you know, we can start to develop an understanding and an awareness of, you know, how their chakra bodies are showing up for them, and how they are feeling secure or not secure in their chakra bodies. So this is just a larger sort of picture so we can all see. But here we can see, so there's actually two plexi here that have always fascinated me with in terms of the root chakra. So we have the coccygeal plexus, and then we have the perineal plexus. And it's written differently here, the pelvic plexuses, but there is a plexus at the base of the perineum as well. And I have talked about this many, many times, so I'm sorry if I keep bringing it up, but we've all felt a felt sense of not feeling safe in our body in this area, right? When you get too close to, you know, a cliff, or you get to, you know, you watch somebody get hurt. That's another thing. If you watch somebody get hurt, you'll feel like this clench, you know, in your pelvic floor, basically, like right at the perineum. And that's what I associate a felt sense of root chakra to be, because you can feel it in the body. And so essentially these different, each plexus is going to send information that it's perceiving from the outside world back through the central nervous system to the brain, to help the brain to decipher what to do next. And these plexi can activate the peripheral nervous system and actually like tell your body to go into fight flight, or tell your body to go into parasympathetic. So when we look at these things, we look at them and we're like, okay, well, what is a plexus? A plexus is a bundle of nerves, of blood, of lymph, of chemical pathways that basically are constantly in movement. So you've heard some people talk about the chakra bodies as spinning wheels, as these metaphoric or metaphysical things, but they're actually physical structures in the body that radiate out frequency, vibrational frequency. So when we look at this particular, you know, depiction here of the spinal column in a human being, and we see all of these lines, those are all the different plexuses and how they come out of the body. And so imagine that, you know, there's a lot of gravity in these lower chakras, right? We're standing, we're walking, we're moving, there's gravity in them, right? So these lower chakras, and not lower in terms of importance or in terms of like emotion, but just lower in terms of physically on the body, these guys are going to be more dense in frequency. Does that make sense? So they're going to have a more dense frequency just because blood pools, right, in those lower chakras, right? As you move closer to the heart starts moving those chemicals more as you get closer to the heart. So it's sort of like just makes a lot of sense, right? The higher up the chakra chain we go, the lighter the frequency, the lighter the experience even of these higher chakras. So I actually, another reason I want to say, you know, don't put too much emphasis on this particular diagram and think that it's right on right, because I actually disagree with this one, the pulmonary plexus and the cardiac plexus. And I disagree with these guys. Like maybe they're all intertwined together, but I'm just going off felt sensations in my body, what I've felt, what I've experienced. And so what I have experienced is heartache. Have you guys experienced heartache? And when I experience heartache, it feels like my heart is being squeezed. Has anybody experienced that heartache where your heart feels like somebody's like squeezing it? Well, the heart is in a bag, okay? So the heart lives in the pericardium, or a bag. And on the outside of the bag are two plexuses, or two plexi called the pericardial plexi. So there's 1, 2, and they look like hands. And so in my felt experience, that makes the most sense to me as the heart chakra, because when I feel loss or grief, that's where I feel it, and it feels like someone is squeezing my heart. So just sharing a little bit of that experience. Has anybody else felt that? I mean, like we could also talk about, you know, like when we feel disempowered, when we feel like somebody's taken away our power, where do we feel it? In the gut, right? It's like somebody just punched you in the gut. Has anybody experienced that? So these are felt sensations that we can have in the body that are directly related to the chakras, the physical components of the chakras. So if the chakras have physical components and they have metaphysical components, then sound healing is very, very, very beneficial for the chakra bodies, because the chakra bodies actually have physical components like that of the bowl or the gong or whatever. And they have a metaphysical component, which is the vibration that is radiating out from each plexus. Does that make sense? Yes, and so somebody else said, there's a deep ache in the heart can be different than, the squeezing. And yes, that's true. There are many different feelings that we can have in relation to the heart chakra. Stabbing is another one. Thank you for mentioning that. Stabbing is another heart chakra sensation. Yes, so we're going to talk about placement of bowls probably tomorrow, but yes, we are going to talk about that. Okay, so moving right along, all my little boxes. Okay, so chakras and vibration, there are perceived positive and negative aspects within each of the chakra bodies. The root chakra is associated with safety. The sacral chakra is associated with sensuality and creativity. The solar plexus is the seat of our power, and the heart is our connection to compassion. The throat chakra represents communication. The third eye represents intuition, and the crown chakra represents our connection to the cosmic consciousness. So, oftentimes we will have clients that'll come to work with us and even just teaching private yoga. And that's actually something we need to talk about today is like, how do you teach private yoga? And how do you assess your client or your student so that you can adequately help them through the yoga, right? It doesn't have to be a guessing game. So, when our clients come in, it's a good idea to ask them if they resonate with different aspects of the chakral bodies, okay? And we also can call these subtle bodies as well, right? So we are gonna ask our clients, in fact, I do this with clients. I'll say, do you identify more with the mother or the victim? Do you identify more with the, gosh, I'm drawing a blank, with the emperor or the servant? Do you identify more with the lover or the actor? And so as I'm asking these questions, I'm looking to see what archetype do they identify with? What aspects are they identifying more with? People who identify with the victim more than they identify with the mother are typically experiencing aspects in their being like not feeling safe, feeling scared, feeling victimized, feeling marginalized. Those are some of the feelings that they're feeling, right? If you feel like you identify more with the victim than you do the mother. People who identify more as the mother versus the victim might feel a sense of safety and security, so much safety and security that they feel that they can take care of others. It doesn't have to actually be children, right? It can be just, I'm here for you. I can hold space for other people. That's the mother. And so we can look at these archetypes and we can sort of talk about or ask our students questions to find out like, well, what may be going on with them on a subtle body level. And then that can help to inform what our plan of action is. So negative energy can disrupt the natural flow of energy in our chakra bodies. It can come from psychic interactions with others, from low prana, high ama sources, or from the astral plane. So, negative energy. Let's talk a little bit about this because you guys know I don't like to use negative and positive. That's not typically what I like to talk about. I like to be more non-dual about things. But perceived negative or perceived positive is a lower vibration. It's a vibration that is heavier. So we can see here this low frequency here, this low vibrational frequency. There's there's wide valleys and wide peaks, and it moves slower. Okay, so those are some of the characteristics of lower frequency. Higher frequency has less space in between the peaks and valleys, and it moves faster. Ultra high frequency has even less space between the peaks and valleys, and it moves even faster. And so ultimately, what we're looking for is we're looking to tone the frequency of our subtle bodies so that they are in alignment with the chakra that they represent. So I mentioned the astral plane. So there are many planes of existence, and we exist on actually all of them simultaneously. So here we look at the astral plane. The astral plane has levels and layers, and the causal plane sits in between the celestial plane and the astral plane. The astral plane is where the mental and causal energy is manifested, and the physical plane is where the astral plane manifests. So for example, and some of you guys have heard this, and some of you guys may have a different sort of word for it, but we've all heard, that like, regardless of what tradition you're in, every tradition has sort of an afterlife story, right? There's an afterlife story. And the afterlife story is typically goes something like this. You leave the body, and your psychic energy goes someplace to heal, right? So that could be heaven, that could be, the astral plane and the highest sort of, realms. It could be, many different things, but it goes someplace to heal. And then, the idea is that when it's ready, it comes back, or when it's ready, it does something else, depending on the tradition that you bought into. Well, the causal plane is also called the mental plane. And everything that we think, we do, we speak, we say, everything goes up into the causal plane. And the causal plane is like a cloud. I like to think of it as like literally above the clouds, like the atmosphere above the clouds. And the astral plane is in fact the cloud itself, right? And then the celestial plane would be like space, if we were gonna use the earth as a model, right? And again, many different theologians and people who specialize in metaphysics talk about, they really are all simultaneously happening at once. They're all happening right here, right now. There's astral beings in the matrix of experience of our physical plane, and there are causal beings in the physical experience of the physical plane. Even celestial beings, people have seen angels and had visions and things like that. That would be a celestial being. So there's this idea that they happen sort of simultaneously, and that we actually live in all of them, just basically with varying levels of awareness. And some of you guys have even talked about or brought up, asked questions about, like astral projection and stuff like that. And in order to do astral projection, you have to have your subtle bodies in alignment. You have to have the vibrational qualities that allow for that. So some people it comes really easily for, some people it doesn't. Sometimes it comes easily at certain times in your life, sometimes it doesn't. My experience in the astral plane is pretty interesting, actually. There was a period in my life where I went there a lot. It was a couple of years ago, and I had multiple experiences in the astral plane with people that were close to me or had passed, living and past. Both can occur. And I haven't ever tried to do it like through astral projection or meditation, but I know that there are some people who claim that that is a practice that you can integrate into your practice if you're interested in it. I go back to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and I say, what is this psychic material that we have? What is this ability to process and possess knowledge of past and future even? Like, what is this? And Patanjali says, well, it's real and it's all a distraction. So I try not to get too hung up in it. But the psychic stuff is real, guys. And it is so interesting how it manifests in different people. So I think I've mentioned before, I experience clairaudience. So I hear things. And so, for example, even this week, I kept hearing this like one phrase over and over and over again. And then right before I got an email, I heard this one phrase. And then I got an email from that particular entity. And it's like, when we're tuned in, and we can pick up on things that are in that causal plane and in levels of the astral planes. But these things also affect us. So, it's like if we are watching TV that's in low prana, or it's not easily digested, that would be what I call low prana, high ama. right? Ama is undigested food, right? So if we are watching, let's say, Cops, for example, like that's pretty low prana, high ama, right? Or if we're watching like Jerry Springer, right? Like that's pretty low prana, high ama. It doesn't mean it's completely devoid of prana, but it's not a high quality, right? And so it's going to shift and change my mood. It's going to shift and change my frequencies in my body if I continue to watch that stuff, if I continue to be around that stuff. You know, it's the same thing with music we listen to. We're talking about sound healing. Music is so powerful. How many of you guys have been in a relationship and then you break up and you're like, what happened? I have no idea what happened. And then you go back to Spotify and you're like, oh my God, my last 6 months, I've been listening to a breakup soundtrack. You know, I mean, like this happens and it affects our frequency. It affects our physical body. So we're going to be talking specifically about these types of sound instruments. So there are many different ways to use sound to heal the physical body. Mantras, singing bowls, gongs, and shloka are all types of sound that can be used in sound healing. So mantra is, I think, the most powerful, and it's the one we're going to talk about first. If we're looking at a historic sort of timeline for these percussion instruments, the gong is really the oldest of the percussion instruments. And actually, some bowls are called gongs and some are called bowls. So we're going to talk about the difference between the two. And then we've even created additional, you know, new instruments. Now we have crystal singing bowls, and now we have even like these, you know, I'm sure you guys have seen them. They're like glass, and there's like, it's almost like a bottle with no base, right? Have you guys seen these things? And they're really cool, very interesting. So there's many, many different tools that we can use for sound healing. So mantra can be the most powerful ways to use sound. Mantra starts in the body and radiates through every cell. Mantra leverages the healing power of intention to focus the vibrations where the body needs it most. And so we're going to take a moment here and we're going to stop there and just talk about this. So really what I want you guys to walk away with today is that the most powerful thing that we can do is have intention around why we're doing what we're doing. Okay? That intention is going to be the main ingredient for healing. Now, if we take that intention and we add some mantra to it, or we add some sound bowls, or we add something else, then that intention is going to travel through those vibrations to our physical somatic body. And that is going to be what helps us to heal on a vibrational level. Does anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts? Okay. All righty. So mantra is, there's a couple different types of mantra. So the first type of mantra that we'll talk about is bija mantra. So every chakra has a bija sound. It's a seed sound. And again, in my opinion, in my perspective, and in my experience, bija mantra is the most powerful mantra. Next to Om and silence. Those are really the three most powerful types of mantra. So bija, seed sounds, Om, and silence. Did you know silence is a mantra? Silence is a mantra. And it's a very powerful mantra. And so when we are working with our clients and students, we first have to like sort of have an idea of where they might be stuck, right? That's why asking them those questions can be really, really helpful. Do you guys want me to go through the whole list of questions? Would that be helpful for you? Okay, hold on.
Could you repeat that B one, the B?
Bija, it's B-I, I'm dyslexic, so I don't know that I should be the one to spell this. But bija, you can also say seed mantra or seed sound, like a seed.
Okay.
don't have it here, so let's see if I can do it. Let's see if I can do it just off my head, okay? So the first question that we're going to ask is do you relate more to the victim, or do you relate more to the mother? That's question number 1. Question number 2, hold on. Oops. Sorry about that. Yeah. Sorry, give me 1 second. I just don't want to give you the wrong ones. My computer is saying you have too many tabs open. Where are they? Okay, so the first one is going to be the first one is going to be mother or victim. The second one is going to be emperor or empress versus servant. The next one for solar plexus is going to be, oh good, I was right. Yes, that's awesome when I'm right. Sometimes it doesn't happen. The next one is going to be, sorry, the martyr or the warrior. So either you feel like you're a martyr, like you're always taking stuff for people, or you feel empowered, like you're a warrior. The next one is going to be the lover and the actress. The next one is the communicator and the silent child. The next one is the wise man or wise woman versus the intellectual. The next one is the egoist versus the guru. So if we're asking our clients which they feel more like, we're looking to see where there is an imbalance in those archetypes, right? So ideally balanced, we would be the mother, we would be the empress, we would be the warrior, we would be the lover, we would be the good communicator, we would be the wise man or woman, and we would be the guru. Like ideally that's what we would be if we were in balance, ideally. But sometimes we don't feel like that, right? And sometimes I feel like the empress in one place, but I don't feel safe in another. Does that make sense? And that shows us that there's imbalance there. That shows us that something in that root chakra needs to be worked on. Questions, thoughts?
Michelle, can we do the last two that you said, the last 2 questions?
Yes. Okay, so the last 2 would be, do you feel like the wise man or wise woman or the intellectual? And then the crown chakra is, do you feel like the egoist or the guru? Now, many people are not going to say, oh, I feel like the egoist, right? I mean, most people are going to say, oh, I feel like the guru. But the idea is like, understanding that when we're over intellectualizing, when, wisdom comes from knowing that you don't have anything to prove. Does that make sense? Have you guys ever dealt with this, like, I need to prove something, I need to tell people I'm smart enough, I need to tell people I'm good enough, I need to tell, like, that sort of imbalance in that Anjana chakra. Because the truth is, you are perfect just as you are. You don't need to do another pose. You don't need to do another thing. You have everything that you need.
I have a question. Basically, all of those things that you listed, I could see both of those. So, like, you were saying that that's an imbalance, or?
So, yeah, no, I don't think it's necessarily an imbalance. I think that, like, for example, if you are looking at, like, mother victim, there are times in my life where I felt like a victim. There are times in my life that I felt like a mother. How do I feel right now? Does that make sense? So it's similar to that dosha quiz stuff, right? You have a pakriti and you have a bakriti. Your pakriti is what you were born with. That's what before puberty, that's what you're going to look at. And then your vakriti is how you're manifesting right now, right? But sometimes we do sort of straddle those two things, right? Sometimes we do sort of feel that we have, qualities of both. I'm sure there are some mothers on this call today that feel like they're a mother, but also feel like they're a victim because their kids are walking all over them. That would be me. No, last night was an interesting night with one of my children. But anyway, so we can have a combination, but the idea is that we want to fortify and we want to really try to be in that balanced embodied state, right? So, it's from a personal svadhyaya perspective, I can journal with these aspects or these archetypes, and I can be like, okay, when I'm feeling good, when I'm feeling healthy, I feel like the mother in the sense that I can take care of people. I can shoulder, whatever I need to shoulder to make other people feel safe because I feel safe. So I can transfer that onto, the people I'm working with, the people I'm serving in my community. It doesn't have to be that you have actual children, right? The warrior, the martyr, it's like my grandmother was very much a martyr. And it's like the idea that I have to do everything and that I have to die on my sword for you to be happy, or I have to sacrifice everything for somebody else's, self-worth to be met. And so, you can have that, and then also sometimes feel very empowered and very strong, like you are in that warrior place. Yeah. I think somebody posted a link in the chat, it looks like, Adrian posted a link to the PDF on the chakras. So yes, there we go. Thanks, guys. Any other thoughts, questions?
I have a question. I didn't relate to victim or mother, so I don't really know what that means at all.
It might not mean a lot of anything. Do you feel safe? Do you feel secure?
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Sure. So yeah, so that's what we're going for. And you could even, if you weren't going to do the archetypes, there's no one right way to do this with clients or students. If you didn't want to do that, you might just go down the list. Yes or no, do you feel safe and secure? Like yes or no, check yes or no. Do you feel open and able to create things? Do you feel sensual, right? Yes or no. And sensuality is different than sexuality. I think the sacral chakra gets a bad rap sometimes because everybody's like, oh, it's sexual, but it's not sexual as much as it is sensual. Sensual is soft. Sensual is loving. A mother can have sensual relationships with her newborn children and it's not sexual. You know what I'm saying? So that's sort of what we're talking about. We're talking about the sensuality, that deep caring compassion, that intimate compassion. Yeah. So how would you use this with a client? How do you present it to the client? So, I have a conversation. If I'm a yoga teacher and I'm working one-on-one with a student, I'm going to ask them what they want to get out of the one-on-one session. If they're interested in sound healing, I might ask them, some of these chakra questions, or if they're looking specifically for yoga to heal or to work through PTSD and trauma, then I'm going to ask them some of these questions like, how do you feel? Do you feel safe and secure? How do you feel? Do you feel, love and compassion for yourself and others? And it's not uncommon for people to say, I feel love and compassion for others, but not for myself. If that's the response from somebody, then that tells me that that's someplace we need to work on, So we're looking for these places where they're not balanced in one place or another. Jessica, did you have anything else?
Nope, that made complete sense to me. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other thoughts or questions?
Good question. Yeah, the root chakra for the mother. So if you're working with a man, he's obviously not going to want to say, yeah, I'm feeling like mother, probably. So, and he may not really find the words ability to nourish, take care, etc. He might not really find that.
Provide.
Yeah, provide.
Provide, support. Like, do you feel that you can support and provide for yourself and others? That is balance for it. Like, that relates more to someone who identifies male.
Stability.
And not, wait, let me take that back for a second. I do have a transgender daughter, so I'm always learning, and let me just say something about this. Not every man feels the same. Not every woman feels the same. We might say, here are some aspects of balance in the root chakra: provider, safe, security, nurturer, and we can give them a lot of different options without adding a gender to it.
So breadwinner would be bad.
I would stay away from breadwinner. My husband is in human resources. He's a trainer. He's a professional trainer. And he keeps reminding me that a master bedroom is no longer a master bedroom. It's a main bedroom. Like, the world is changing, and we need to, remember that some of these terms are outdated, and that we have to really put forth an effort to continuously stay current with our language. Angelic.
Oh no, I had forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, no worries. Tanya.
Hi, thank you. Can you, in the same way that you just kind of unpacked the root and the sacral chakra, also unpack the other ones into
Sure.
what balance looks like? Because particularly with the guru egoist one, like I'm not even sure kind of what the qualities are.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun for me, actually, because there's so many psychological components to the chakras. Because think about it, their plexuses along the central nervous system, they're talking directly to your brain unconsciously all the time, right? So a lot of the things that we do, the things that we say, the patterns we get into come from the chakras directly. So root and sacral we've done. Solar plexus is empowerment. So a balanced solar plexus looks like you feel empowered, you feel safe and comfortable to be in your power, okay? If you are having an imbalance in the solar plexus, it can go two ways. You feel disempowered, you feel weak and silent and small. If you feel disempowered, so it's either weak, silent, small, or disempowered, and now I have to look big like a bear. Does that make sense? So a lot of times people who are working with like abuse, and they are, like the abuser or the aggressor, there is a lot of solar plexus imbalance there. They feel disempowered, so in order to make themselves feel powerful, they have to take advantage or oppress someone else. Does that make sense? Yes? Yes, no, yes, sort of. And then as you go up, the heart chakra, feeling self-compassion, feeling compassion for self and others, right, is balanced, where the door is open to your heart, right? That there's not like a place that you're like, no, I will not see that. Forgiveness is a quality of a balanced heart chakra. Compassion is a quality of a balanced heart chakra. When we are closed off or rigid, when we have, the perception of hate, or the perception of hate, it's directly related to fear. It's directly related to fear, and that perpetuates imbalance in the heart chakra. The throat is like, I feel open, I feel free to communicate, I feel, safe to communicate. Imbalance would be, I can't communicate, I'm silent, I'm stifled, right? Or over communication, that happens too. We see people with an overactive throat chakra. It's like they just will not stop. And it's like a misunderstanding almost, like they feel like they're not being heard or seen. Typically it's by themselves, but they don't recognize it, so they project that onto others. And then third eye, so the third eye is either wise or egoist, right? No, it's either wise or intellectual, yeah? So wise is like, okay, I know when to hold them, I know when to fold them, and I know when to walk away. That's wise, right? Intellectual is, I know everything. I know what's right. I can pick apart this, I can pick apart that. I'm talking specifically from experience here, guys. Like it's either a vacillation between needing to prove yourself or needing to prove somebody else is wrong. That's an imbalance in Anjana chakra. And then the crown chakra, it's directly related to the guru, which is the teacher. A guru will never call themselves a guru. So that's one thing we need to remember. A real guru will never call themselves a guru, okay? It's real important because there are a lot of people that say they're a guru. There are a lot of people that say, and actually in India, if you really want to talk about gurus, gurus are individuals, they teach, but they also take on karma. They teach, but they also take on karma. And that is their function. So it's really different. Like I see, especially in the guru culture, in yoga, it's a dangerous place to be if you call yourself a guru. You know, if you call yourself a guru, you're overdoing it. You're compensating for something. So this is the natural guru, not the self-proclaimed guru. And then the imbalance would be egoism. And you know, it's almost like balance in the crown chakra is, I am not a guru. I'm a divine being in a human experience. That is all, right? And in egoism in the crown chakra is, I'm a guru. Come on, let's form a cult. Follow me. Does that make sense? I'm in rare form for this today, guys.
I do have a question now.
Yes.
Were you done?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it was, I know you were talking about like with the throat chakra. What was it exactly? Because you went on and I really loved what you said about the whole guru thing, because I can resonate with a lot of that in many different ways. I don't know, because I feel like the more sensitive, I was gonna say we, but I guess I'll speak for myself. Like the more sensitive I am to energies and working with other people, how you said picking up the karma.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that is a very real thing. Like I was always told, like by my like grandmom, like my parents, like, oh, you're a natural sponge and you'll pick things up for people and stuff, and like, so you have to know how to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I try my best to work through that. Some days is easier than others, and it's always easier said than done, I feel. But there's times when, like, because I do energy work with people, and I have to always make sure, even like when I was first learning Reiki, for example, like to make sure that I was using Reiki energy, universal, collective, cosmic energy versus my own. So that way, one, it wasn't like a projection of energy, so that I wouldn't steal or drain for myself, excuse me, or also be collecting their energy. And so even when doing like certain energy works, like every time I do Reiki, I learn that I do things that I guess I subconsciously know how to do, or it just weird things end up happening, and I do things and I don't even realize that I knew how to do it until I'm doing it, type of thing. And it's just, that's how I know it just flows out of me, and I'm able to release everything and not allow it to affect my life. But if I'm not tapping into that space, I can definitely see the backlash of like somebody else's energies lingering and it being affecting my personal life.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say with the throat chakra, and so with the guru thing too, like it always, I don't know, I've always, I guess, call it a problem with authority to a certain degree. I don't like, I like spirituality. I don't like religion, but I like learning from religion.
Sure.
So I like teachers and guides, but don't tell me you're the almighty guru and I have to stand by you. Like that's something that it gives me a red flag all the time. So I just like trust my intuition with that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that was just something that I was like, am I egotistical, or like just thinking that way, or like, are they egotistical and they need to like just breathe and chill and quiet down for a moment.
Yeah.
But with the throat chakra, I do notice that I can talk a lot at times. So I'm working on being the listener a lot more. And I started this thing it's been about maybe like 6 months now. Every so often I'll do like a talk fast. And I notice when I'm not on a talk fast and I'm wanting to put myself in a space of stillness, I can create a space of silence. But when I'm on a talk fast, my mind is talking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say that like that's in connection with, because that's clearly like the higher chakras?
Yeah, I would say that to work with that energy that you're experiencing when you go on a talk fast, I would say do mantra for your throat chakra, like bija sounds for your throat chakra.
Like in my head, not out loud.
Either. So, and I'm hoping to get to that, but in yoga, there's a couple of different things that we do. So you can say mantra out loud, and that's pretty powerful, but silent mantra is more powerful. So you could, in your mind, you could be saying mantra, like whatever that the bija sound is for the throat chakra, or you could say it out loud, but I would be willing to guarantee you, like, I don't know what I could guarantee you, but I could guarantee you like an apple and an orange that you're probably going to, have a pretty profound experience if you just did that for 7 days. You'd feel completely different.
The bija sounds are like the om, aim, cream, clean, those?
Nope. So they're like like the root is lam, the sacral is vam, the solar plexus is ram. So yeah, moving up that. So I would do throat for you and see how it goes. Do it 108 times for 7 days when you're on the next time you're on a talk fast.
Thank you, because when I'm doing these talk fasts, I do those bija sounds. Every so often. I haven't done them in a while, but I do have mala beads as well to help me with the counts and stuff. And I have 2 different sets for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And I guess this is something a story I told myself, like, well, no, you're doing a talk fast. So like, you're not even supposed to, like, when I'm on a talk fast, I don't schedule any work. I do my best to turn off my phone so that way I'm not texting or on social media or any of that, because I'm like, even in texting, that's a form of communication, that's a form of talking. So when I start thinking, right, or like if I'm even thinking out loud and something slips, I'm like, dang, I broke the talk fast. Or if I'm thinking loudly in my head and I'm not physically saying anything out loud, maybe I'm being hard on myself, or what I'm like, I need to do better with this talk fast, because I'm still talking in my mind. So I don't practice the bija sounds during a talk fast, even if it is in my mind. I do see the difference when you do it in your mind versus doing it out loud too. By the way, it is a difference. So I'm gonna try that, because I have it, and it might redirect my, it will redirect my thoughts. So thank you, because I think the whole talk fast thing and me, I clearly overthinking. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it.
Hey, Michelle, two
yeah.
things. One, how do I raise a hand?
There's a little button. Where is it, guys?
Where the chat is.
Where the
when
chat.
you go, it goes like almost the last one down. So.
Or
on an iPad, it's under the three dots.
I'm on the computer. When I go to chat, is it a hand icon? Because I don't actually see the hand icon.
At the bottom of that frame, when you go to chat, it says invite, mute me, raise hand.
So mine looks a little bit different.
Yeah, that's what
yeah, sorry. Because I was not sure where it was either. Mine on the bottom, if you click participants, then on the top of the chat, will show a list of people on the side. And then you can raise hand.
Yay!
Yeah, I went through that too.
Okay. Thank you. And then the second thing is, can you just go from the root up again? Mother, victim, just list them again so I can write them down this time.
Yeah, and I actually think I might have messed up. I'm going to look at y'all at the link that Adrian put in here to make sure I'm giving you the same thing as the link here. And these are arbitrary. These actually come from a psychotherapist. This is her interpretation. And she has a book that talks about all this stuff. So yeah. So going from the bottom, mother, victim. Emperor for second, or martyr. That's where I messed up. Emperor or empress versus martyr. The third is warrior or servant. Lover or actor is the fourth. Communicator, silent child is the fifth. Intuitive, intellectual is the sixth. Guru, egoist is the seventh. Okay, perfect. All right, Tiffany.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I've never done this before. But I just kind of want to ask a quick question, but don't really know how to go about it. Recently, well, like in the past year or so, I had like a major heartbreak. And previously, before, when I had meditated or whatever, I could feel like, a positive energy around my heart chakra. But then it kind of went to a point where after all this happened, I mean, I felt like I had an elephant sitting on my chest. But it stayed that way for a long time, which in fact, I ended up going in and ended up with some heart issues. But I can't feel that anymore, like the positive energy. And when I tried to like meditate or do a mantra or a seed or anything for my heart chakra, it feels like it goes up to my throat. and I feel like almost like I can't breathe. There's a blockage there.
Mhm.
So I don't quite know, like, how do you go about something like that? I've tried working on it through meditation or whatever, but even with sound therapy or anything, it feels like when I focus on my heart, it always makes my throat feel like it's closing.
Yeah, so I have that too. That's it. So also, let me just talk about this. This isn't supposed to be like a chakra workshop, but we're going to talk about chakras. So the chakra above and below are going to directly affect the chakra that in between the two. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the heartbreak does two things. It silences you and disempowers you. Does that feel right?
Yes.
Okay, because I can feel it right now. I mean, I actually can feel you guys through this spirit box that we have going on here. But like, you can feel that, right? And so,
Yes.
and it almost feels like when you go to like talk or speak or say something, almost like your throat closes from the bottom. Is that what you're feeling?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a manifestation of heartbreak.
Okay.
So I think that what I would tell you, Tiffany, is there's some like work you can do around it. I'm so happy to I'm happy to, meet with you one-on-one if you want to, and we can talk about it offline. But there is some work that you can do around it. I feel like a lot of times, and I'm getting this directly from Richard Miller, a lot of times we have to see, hear, and connect to the heartbreak and integrate it into our experience before it will release. Now, you said you had some heart issues, correct?
Yes.
And they were not there before, correct?
Correct.
This happens, guys. This is why this stuff is really important. So I've worked in cardiac for over a year, and I work specifically with people who are in like heart failure, have had a heart attack. And I've told this story before of working with a gentleman who was Colombian, who was very strong, he was very healthy. He would always come back to the States to get medical care, was always in perfect health. And he owned a business, and his business caught fire, and that was the first heartbreak. And then a couple of weeks after the fire, his employees went in and stole all of the all of the equipment that was there, so he could never rebuild his business. And he said after that he couldn't get out of bed, and he couldn't get out of bed. It went on for a couple of weeks, like he couldn't walk. He had no energy to walk. It was like really bizarre. Fly him to Miami, and half of his heart's dead.
Oh my gosh.
So it's super, 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 now I'm not saying that will happen to anybody. Please don't ever think that that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, he was older, but it has the potential, these heart experiences, these chakra bodies have the potential to cause, damage, especially if we don't work through the material. So, and Leah talked about this in Ayurveda, how disease will crystallize in the chakra systems. And so that crystallization causes like energy to not be able to flow. Well, what causes heart disease and heart death is not being able to have energy get to it, not having adequate blood supply. Isn't that fascinating?
And that's how I feel. I feel like I can't get energy to my heart, and it just seems to like want to push up into my throat and then, close off my throat almost. You feel like this pain or this lump, and like, even when I do a mantra, it's like or even in my head, I can do it quietly, and I can feel it building up in my throat, and I don't feel anything in my chest, like in my heart. It's weird.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that experience. And like I said, if you want to chat offline about it, I'm happy to. I would also recommend like working with like the lower chakras, because I'm not sure, but you tell me how this feels for you. Oftentimes when we have deep, deep heartbreak, it affects our feelings of safety, our feelings of, being accepted, being creative. Are you feeling that as well?
I was definitely feeling extremely unsafe. I mean, not physically unsafe, but just an overwhelmed sense of being out of control and not being safe. And I mean, it was marital issues, and I just felt, it was a long list of things, but yeah.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you sharing, and I can tell that it's challenging for you. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Adrian.
Hi, thank you. Okay, so if a person's a perfectionist, where are they in this lineup of the archetypes? And also, if somebody has a lot of anger and is real defensive, where are they in these archetypes? And lastly, someone with addictive behavior, where would they be?
It's all the same place. It's all solar plexus.
Really?
It's all solar plexus. Yep.
Wow.
So, and go through one at a time. How about that? So perfectionism, there's a need to prove yourself to be a certain way, right? That in order to be accepted, in order to be connected to, you have to be a certain way. That's solar plexus. Okay. Then the next one you said was abuser, right?
Addictive behavior.
Addictive behavior is also because you feel disempowered, so you go to the bottle. You feel disempowered, so you go to, the pills or whatever. It gives you that like perception of power for a fleeting moment, right? And then it's gone and you're disempowered again.
Wow.
And what's the other one?
Somebody's angry and defensive.
Yeah, so angry and defensive is also a feeling of disempowerment, that you have to project empowerment in order to be seen and heard.
Wow.
Where did you say the addictive behavior lies?
Solar plexus. Yeah.
All wrapped up into one person, apparently.
All wrapped up into one. And you know what? We all have aspects of these things, right? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong or bad with needing to prove yourself. That's the story of my life, I think. Just to divulge a little information about me. So both my parents died when I was really young, and I was in high school actually. And my mom was a teacher for the school system. So everybody knew she was sick for like 4 years. She had cancer and it went to her brain and her lungs, and people were giving her like sick leave in Austin school system. And I was skipping school and smoking a lot of weed. Like that was literally what was getting me through at 15. And she died, and I didn't have enough credits to graduate. And there was a GED program that they were offering at the Austin Community College. Notice I now own a yoga studio on the campus of Austin Community College. And so, whoa, sorry guys, I got a little emotional there for a second. But anyway, so I knew that there was no way that I could get 4 years back, and so I had to go and get my GED. And I really was, I was dyslexic, but I didn't know I was dyslexic. And so I went to the person at Anderson High School and I said, hey, I want to be in this program. And she said, no. She was like, I'm not going to let you go. And my grandmother called the superintendent, because my grandmother was also a teacher. I come from a long line of teachers. And my grandmother called the superintendent. My grandmother looks at the registrar. She said, pick up the phone and call the superintendent. She's going to that program. And she's like, I don't think so. Picks up the phone, and sure enough, I'm going now. And not only am I going, but my boyfriend's going too. So we get our GED, we do our thing, and then I busted my butt in college, and I ended up with a master's in education. And I went back to school to teach middle school, because that's where I thought that I was like, that's where they lost me. They lost me in middle school. Well, fast forward, I leave middle school, I do all this training, and I had this, like, when I first started leading trainings, I had this, like, it was like this force of needing to prove that I knew what I was talking about. Like, I was just so, like, there was so much of me needing to prove myself, and I wanted my teacher to see me. That was really where it all lied. And my solar plexus was so out of balance that literally this whole company I built on this need to be seen and heard and connected to, which is why I know it's so important for you guys to be seen and heard and connected to. And then one day I was like, wait a second. What do I have to prove? I'm a divine being in the human experience. And I'm doing everything that I can. I'm perfect just as I am. And I really got it. I really got it. And that's when like I stopped needing to prove. So it's funny because it's only been in the last like couple years that that's happened. And so every once in a while people will give me flack about like grammar or spelling or something, specifically with the training. And it used to like really irritate me. And now I'm just like, just do the work, girl. It doesn't matter. Like, you're a divine being in a human experience. Everything you're giving everybody is exactly what they need, you know? And any need to like push or make wrong somebody else is somebody else's material. Does that make sense? And so like, it's an important realization. That's why I even talk about it in the 200 hour, this like accessing your story, right? Because if I don't access that story, I don't know what my material is. And if I don't know what my material is, I just run around all day projecting my BS onto everybody, you know? But now that I know what my material is, every time it comes up, I'm like, oh, Michelle, it's okay. You're a divine being in a human experience and you're doing the best you can. So really the solar plexus, I think, is the crux of a lot of our material, because we all want to be seen and heard and connected to, and 90% of us at some point in our life have felt disempowered in some way, you know, and especially women. Not to cancel out you men on the call, I know it happens to men too, but I was talking to somebody this morning, we were talking about the Me Too movement, and I was like, I'll bet you anything that a vast majority of women have experienced things like that and have never ever had the voice to say anything. And I mean, like literally, and I can feel you guys right now, everybody feeling that like cool in your legs and cool in your arms, like that psychic transmission, that is psychic energy transmitting through this little spirit box we have right here. But it's true, that's the human experience. And so to recognize that, you know, we've been marginalized, and to recognize that we can reclaim our power is healing and is balancing. Sometimes we do it through words, sometimes we do it through sound, sometimes we do it through asana. But all of these tools help it to be a little bit more accessible for us so that we can live in our empowered truth. Elizabeth.
I was gonna touch a little more on Tiffany's thing, but talking about the heart problems that she was having as a result of that, I told you a little earlier, I'm going on my own healing journey here to help with some childhood things that happened to me as well. I also didn't get my GED until later. My schooling was kind of messed up, so I was kind of neglected that way growing up, and so I mean, I was like 27 before I even touched a GED course. But I've been reading this book called The Body Keeps the Score. I don't know if any of you have read it, but basically it's the brain, mind, and body and the healing of trauma. And it talks about PTSD and how it's not just veterans who have it, it's literally anyone can have it. And it's been really opening my eyes to a whole bunch of stuff with how my body reacts. Like I tend to get sick to my stomach when I get really stressed out. Even when I'm not really that stressed out, I have stomach issues, and I'll get either acid reflux or I'll, you know, throw up or whatever, you know. And I noticed that it's probably because that's triggers that are like, you know, it changes your physiology. So when you feel that threat, you go back to that place and you feel those physical feelings, emotions, all that stuff that you felt at that moment, and it all just kind of comes back. I've experienced flashbacks and things like that to certain moments in my life that were very traumatic. So it's very possible that your heartbreak could cause heart problems. So like in other ways other than just you know, it's on a psychological, physiological, emotional, you're talking about the chakras, like all those levels. You know, so thank you for sharing your story, Michelle, because it touches me.
you know,
I'm always trying to prove myself. My mom's been, my mom and I haven't had the best relationship, but she does know me a little bit. And she has been saying to me pretty often lately, like, you just beat yourself up so much. And I just don't understand why you have this thing you have to prove. And so I guess I've been working on that portion of myself lately, not trying to put so much pressure on myself all the time, even with this, like doing this and being like, how am I going to get all these hours in? How am I going to get it done in a certain amount of time? Like, I have a deadline for myself. I need a job. I need to do stuff, and you just kind of overwhelm yourself. And it's really just my ego trying to make me be something,
Sure.
Okay, I'm done.
I want to thank you for sharing, Elizabeth. I really appreciate it. And, for years, I didn't tell anybody about my high school and my, and it was so hard to get in there. And like, I was missing foundational stuff, like math, science, foundational stuff. It made it so hard,
It's still hard. I just need to take the TSI, and it's still like, oh, when I look at math, that's always been my worst subject. So sometimes I go backwards because there were like certain things that happened, just like a little touch. I had a drug addict grandmother. She was addicted to prescription drugs, morphine, Vicodin, all those kinds of things. So I saw her go through that. And then, I was in ballet, and the schooling was already kind of messed up, and we weren't able to afford the ballet anymore. So instead of telling me that, they kind of blamed it on me not doing my schoolwork. So I kind of thought I was stupid for a really long time. And so that's where that block went. And when I keep saying like the inner me, or like the little me, or your inner child or whatever, I was really mean to myself back then. And I would look at myself in the mirror and say all those things that I felt about myself. So when I feel those ways now, I see her face in my vision. And so it's been trying to conquer that and, reparent her, as I said earlier, and just kind of hold her and love her and tell her it wasn't her fault, that things happened the way that they did, and just trying to come to, and then also realize that my parents were just people dealing with their own stuff. So it's like, it's just a waterfall effect all the way down.
Well, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you for listening, everybody.
Awesome. Great work. Chelsea. I love it when the babies come into camera.
Hi. When I was hearing Tiffany's story, it resonated with me because I went through something pretty similar. And the way she said she was trying to approach meditation, and it had changed and things just got a little bit harder. That was something that I had to confront. And then one of the changes that I made was that I decided that when I would feel that deep heartache and that kind of heaviness or real strong stagnation, is the way I came to look at it, I would put my sneakers on and I would do a lap around the block, and I would get blood pumping through my heart. And, a lot of that was based off of understanding like the, Anamaya Kosha, igniting the body so that you can then step better into the energetic body. I did really intentional running too, so that as I would feel my heart rate speeding up, I would be actively connecting that to me moving a blockage. And so I would feel it. And what was really interesting is that when I would do these kind of heartbreak runs, they were really hard. And I would get winded, like I would take 5 steps and just be like, but I kept doing it. And they are like, it was really, really effective. It helped me move through a lot of that heartbreak. Mostly because after I did it, I would be able to step back into meditation and gain a really big benefit and do a really big release. So you don't have to do running if you don't like running, but something that gets your heart rate up, just stepping into the anatomical body, getting that to be energized can, feed back into moving back into that energy side. So I just wanted to say, maybe try that.
Great suggestion, Chelsea. And I love that you had the intuition to do that. That's really, really magical. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate you. Amy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for what you just did when you were talking about your own personal story and sharing your coming into knowing and becoming whole was a beautiful example of what you're trying to teach us, and that it's in the process. It just spoke so beautifully to it's an experience, and you have so deeply used your yoga to heal that you're now. And what I really wanted to thank you for was what you were talking about, the working so hard, have to prove myself, that I am now benefiting from that flaw because you have so beautifully created a curriculum that is so profound and thorough that it will reach out and heal many others. And that's just the power of doing your work. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm sorry, a lot of stuff's coming up around it today, actually. So thank you for that, and I appreciate it. This is the first time I've cried in 4 months, so I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much. Adriana?
Hi, yeah. Well, so I think going back to what you said about like your guy, I guess it was somebody else, I'm sorry, but somebody was talking about a person who was extremely healthy and all of that, and then he experienced 2 back-to-back like heavy grief episodes, and that the energy built up in his heart and literally his heart, and it affected him that way. And I was just thinking about a lot of stuff that my mom and her mother went through, and how their lives ended up playing out. And my mom is still alive, but she's found herself in an extremely similar situation as her mother, because of just so many things. They did not have an easy life. And same with my stepmother. Like any mother figure that I've had up until recently, because my dad is recently remarried and I don't know her very well, but she seems to have less baggage. But every mother figure that I've ever had they've had, I don't know, past griefs and past traumas that have influenced the way they raise their daughter. Because both my biological mother and my late stepmother, they saw me as their daughter, and they wanted me to avoid all of the mistakes that they had made and all of that stuff. And like, I look at my mom, and she's finally like, I got her on the yoga train finally, and she's, coming to herself and, really learning some things about herself later in life. But with my stepmother, I never got that chance. And part of me, we did not have a really good relationship when I was growing up, me and my stepmother. And I could have been better in so many different ways. I was also a teenager when they got married, so I was probably not easy to live with and deal with. But but I feel like a lot of the things surrounding her, I don't know, like I felt like she wanted to do good, but it ended up projecting onto me, and it made me feel a certain way, inadequate, and a lot of the throat chakra stuff, having to prove myself too much. And honestly, it's a complicated thing, because I feel like the only reason like I finished high school and went to college is because she pushed me. But while she was pushing me, I didn't do as well as I could have in some things, and I did not have any self-confidence whatsoever until like my mid-20s. And with my mom, you know, she was working through her own things and she was dealing with addiction. And so I wasn't living with her after a certain point because she could no longer take care of me. And I feel like in some way I kind of absorbed that stuff that they were carrying. And my stepmother died 2 years ago. And, you know, when she died, I felt like I had like worked through it. You know, I cried and like, you know, grieved. And they say that with time, the grief, the pain, you learn to live with the pain. It never goes away, but you learn to live with the pain. And I totally understand that, despite our rocky relationship. Sorry, my computer is beeping. But yeah, like even now though, I always wonder, like, the most random thing is just like trigger me into crying fits. And it makes me wonder, like, where is this tension being stored? Like, is it in my heart? Because I guess that's where grief lives. I don't know, but how do you work through that?
Yeah, so let's talk about this. This is a really great place to sit with for a second. So where is grief stored in all of the chakras? In all of them. I mean, seriously, guys, I do not know what's wrong with me today. I think I could cry at the drop of a hat today. But like when we lose somebody, we not only feel the loss in our heart, but we also feel disempowered. We also feel like our, you know, ability to create, to move in the world has been stifled in some way. We don't feel safe. We don't feel like anybody will hear us, you know? I mean, it affects all of the chakras, right? And I mean, it is so interesting because energetics, like Angelic was talking about earlier, energetics are really, really powerful. And I think that really what I recommend is sitting down. I mean, so you guys know, especially you guys who have, you know, done multiple programs and been around for a while, I really believe that compassionate self-forgiveness is one of the best tools that we have, right? Forgive yourself for buying into the idea that you weren't enough. Forgive yourself for buying into the idea that you aren't worthy of love. Forgive yourself for buying into the idea that, you know, that somebody else's opinion of you dictates your worthiness, you know? And when we do that work, we really do it, and we sit down and we just go in and we really see all of the things that, all the judgments we've placed on ourselves based on other people's projection, you know, then we can start to heal the parts of us that feel broken. There's actually nothing broken. It just feels that way. And then we can come into this sense of wholeness. And, you know, what Amy said earlier, you know, is right on. This training, all of it, every single training I've ever written is based on my own practice. Every single thing I've ever written is how I got here. So do that work, you know, put the yamas in relationship to yourself. Put the niyamas in relationship to yourself. Put, you know, your values out there. I mean, that's, to be really transparent, that's what I'm struggling with today, is I have very, very strong values. And if I take my values and I apply and I like overlay them over something I'm doing, and that thing that I'm doing and my values don't match up, it causes me deep, deep grief. And that's what I'm going through, just to be really honest. But that's what I would tell you. I would tell you that, you know, like, I think that the pain, you know, Patanjali says pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So when we recognize that the pain is there and we aren't scared of it to where we separate ourselves from it, but rather we say, hey, pain, I feel you and I see you and I'm connected to you, you know, then that really helps us to integrate it. And so that it's no longer something that's taboo and perpetuating this separation, but it's actually there to help us heal.
Thank you. Yeah. To piggyback off of that, it's just like, this is going to sound weird, and I promise I'll stop talking after this, but like, so my stepmom, she had a way of parenting that I don't necessarily agree with. And I find myself even now, 2 years after she like died, and in an awful way, like I find myself like mad at her for those things. And she's been gone for a while. And even before she died, like a long time before she died, she was just sick, and she couldn't be the way she was several years ago. And I find myself mad at her, and it's just wondering what to do with that. Like it's pain, but it's also bitterness, and it's also anger and all that stuff. And she's not here. And I guess you just like acknowledge it, right? And maybe, I don't know, see how you can take that pain and avoid causing that type of pain with people around you. Maybe, I'm not sure.
Do we want to do a little exercise? Everybody got somebody you're angry at?
Yeah.
Bueller, we got it? Okay. All right. So think about that person, you know, and for you today, you know, you can think about your mom, your stepmom, right? So think about that person. And I want you to do two things here. I want you to maybe come to a comfortable seat, maybe close your eyes if that feels comfortable. And I want you to imagine that person or that entity even. I'm going with an entity today. So imagine that person, that entity, and visualize them and see the things that you loved about them and see the things that you didn't like about them. And so just take a few breaths, just sort of sitting with that. All the things you loved about them and all the things you didn't love about them. All right. So now that you've got that and you've got what you're angry with them about or what has bothered you, all right? So you place one hand on your heart. And so we're going to come up with a statement of compassionate forgiveness for this entity or this person. And so you might say, I forgive the person or the entity. No, take that back. So I forgive myself for buying into the idea that this person or entity was fundamentally bad or wrong. I forgive myself for buying into the idea that this person or entity's opinion about me or how I am in the world affected my self-worth. I forgive myself for buying into the idea that this person or entity had power over me. I forgive myself for buying into the idea that this person or entity is bad or wrong. The truth is, this person or entity is a divine being in a human experience. And just sit with it and see how you feel. And if there's anything else you want to forgive yourself for buying into about this person, please take time to do that. Know that every being is doing the best that they can and is exactly where they're supposed to be. And then take all the time that you need to come back to the group and let me know if that was helpful or not. So how was that?
I have a question.
Sure.
What if we're so clouded about the negative of that person that we can't remember any of the good stuff?
I know. Please, no, don't. You're doing great. You're doing great. Thank you for your vulnerability and thank you for sharing and thank you for voicing your concern. I understand that. And there are individuals in the world that look like they have not done any bit of good. And so I do understand that. And when you're in that place, Victoria, I think that I think that what's coming up for me is that you can, forgive yourself for buying into the idea that you have to forgive them. You don't have to. I often tell people that, and not to be religious and not to be dogmatic, but I often say Christ was my first teacher. And trying to have compassion for people is what I strive for. But the reality is there are some experiences and relationships and events in our life where we really don't have the capacity anymore to forgive. And that's okay. That's okay.
Michelle, could I
Yeah.
respond to Victoria?
Yes, please, Dawn.
I really felt that because I know no one on this call is probably foreign to loss, but my dad was a drug addict and he died when I was 16. And so he was in and out of my life for most of the time that he was alive. And so my feelings for him have shifted. And, when he died, I felt so angry because, well, first I felt nothing. But then once I started allowing myself to feel things, I felt really angry because it was like, I can't even have these arguments with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't share anything with him. And I felt like, how could I resolve these things without him physically being here? And something that I've experienced is, Victoria, like Michelle said, being okay with the fact that like right now you don't have to think about any of the good things. It may come back later. I don't have many good memories with my father. Most of the memories I have are bad, even the final ones. And so trying to find those sometimes can be excruciating. But then I also just think about what I learned in his absence as well, and so maybe I don't have the most lovely memories with him, but I learned some of the things that I wanted in my partner, some of the things that I wanted to be able to do with other people, some of the ways that I wanted to make people feel that I told that I was connected to, that I loved, And so I feel you, girl, 100%. You don't have to think about the good things yet. You can just let whatever come, and then let it go. And yeah.
That's beautiful, Dawn. And I want to second that. Sometimes the greatest gift is that they show us how not to be. I've burned through a lot of karma not treating my kids the way my dad treated us. And so I think that sometimes the greatest memories are that we were able to overcome, and thrive. And despite those, odds, we have everything we need within us. And that was revealed to us through those hard experiences. Thank you for sharing, both of you. Anybody else?
May I jump in? I'm
Absolutely.
feeling really guided to share something, but I don't want to, it's an exercise and it is a sound healing yoga exercise that is used in like Kundalini yoga is where I learned it from. And what's interesting, the exercise we just did with placing our hands in our heart and the forgiveness usually is followed after doing the exercise I'm about to say. And it is focused on like how you was like, no, scratch that, I forgive myself. Like that's how we do it. We do the self-forgiveness because exactly as you said, like sometimes we have to forgive ourselves for the idea of we need to forgive others. So it's always healing ourselves first before healing any situation. But it's like pretty much you lay down and you take the inhale, and with the inhale, you think of the person. Oh, my phone is dying. I don't know if it's, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So with the inhale, you think of the person, entity, or situation that is giving you any discomforts, or especially anger. It is for specific with anger. And you elevate your legs up. You keep them straight forward. So it's not like in Vinasana where they are in a V shape, but you're laying straight. With the inhale, you think of the person, and when the breath is suspended, you raise up your foot to like a 45-degree angle, keeping them together. And then you just release the breath and you bring your feet back down. Now you want to have your arms by your sides with the palms facing down. Okay. Then you're gonna allow, that's during the fourth count, the fourth breath. When we're going into the inhale again, you think of the person and everything that has ever hurt you, of that situation, person, entity, whatever you want, it resonates with you. And you now you breathe it. You can do it with the breath of fire, or you could just do it with deep breathing, because you don't want to harm yourself. And I'm not going to tell anybody to do the breath of fire if they do not know how to do the breath of fire or anything like that. So deep breathing. And you are going to bring your arms, maybe I should put the video so that y'all can kind of see, but you're gonna lift you're gonna keep your legs lifted. Every time you take that deep breath in, you elevate the legs up. I'm gonna put my camera on and see if I can demonstrate it a little bit. But the point is, with every exhale, you are going to slam your palms down into the ground as hard as possible, taking all that anger, all that heat from your body. Your legs are going to be 45-degree angles, so you are going to be channeling the solar plexus very heavily, taking all of that anger and grounding it back to the earth. And you normally play this with like drums in the background. So the sound therapy of the drums doing the healing while you are banging back into the earth. And some people connect it with their heartbeat. Some people connect it with the beats of whichever organ that pain, that anger, that frustration is vibrating on. And you can do it for like, a minute or two if it's too much, or you can do it for 5 minutes, but you want to pretty much do it at your own pace is what I'm going to recommend, is do it at your own pace and allow the purge to happen, meaning cry, scream, let it be the release. And when you feel like you have finally, even if you felt like you had a release and you need to take a pause, a break, and then get back into that because there's still more built up in there, do that. That's fine. You don't ever want to do more than like 45 minutes of that. That's way too much. But do it at your own pace. And then afterwards you lay down and you get into Vinasana. You lift your hands up to receive from the divine light, the divine love, energy. Allow your body to settle in. You stay rested for about like 30 seconds to a minute, connecting with your breath. And then you put yourself back into like a lotus position. And that is when you put your hand over your heart and you do the self-forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, does anybody want me to show the link? Like I could put my camera on if you want to see. If not, I'm gonna just shut up. But I don't know if everybody needed that or somebody needed that, or.
So I have somebody who wants you to do it, and I think it would be very helpful. So this stuff she's talking about is actually, there's a book, I happen to have it, not really related, but it's called Trauma Release Exercises. Trauma Release Exercises, and then cross over the yoga boundary sort of. And so some of what she's talking about is actually in this book. There's a lot of other things. I found this.
Do you know the name of it?
Yeah, so it's Trauma Release Exercises by Dr. David Berchelli, I think. And let me see if I can find it exactly so I can give you a name. Hold on.
And then I'm going to try to hopefully. I don't know if you can. Hi, everybody. This is Tyler. So anytime you're going down on the mat, you just want to make sure you're rolling yourself down so that you are not harming your spine. And you go down and you're just going to lay. I don't know if you can see my legs all the way. Let me move this back just a little bit. Maybe that'll work. Okay, yeah. So you keep your legs together, and your palms facing down. And you're gonna be laying down, and you're gonna take a deep breath in. And with the deep breath in, you are raising your legs up. Mm-hmm. Hold the breath, suspend it as you are thinking about the person, and as you release your breath, you bring your leg back down. And you hold. There's always a 4-count breath. Inhale, suspend, exhale, hold, repeat. Then you do it again. Now you could do the bandhas if you like at that point. It's going to release itself. However, if this is the first time you do that, your body is going to tense up as it is. So I would just say, just be as gentle with yourself as possible, because this is a very intense exercise. And so you do it again. And I would say do that inhale, exhale, and release it down at least 3 times to kind of get your body used to the angle and how the breath is going to flow before you get into it, and have drum music in the background. So like either Native American drums or African drums, any type of drum playing, so that you can hear the drums beating at the same time. And so then at the 3rd time, and remember with the inhale is when you are going to be channeling the anger, the frustration, all of that resentment, guilt, shame type of energy. And so then you are, let me do it correctly. Your stomach is gonna go up and down naturally. On the exhale, when you stop, you wanna relax and hold it, because you are gonna feel a lot, very, very hot. And you might feel lightheaded. You might feel, you're just gonna definitely drink water after all of that as well, by the way. That's the point of it. Inhales, your hands are pretty much going up. Exhales, your hands are banging it down. Don't worry if the drums decide that they're not in sync with you. Be in sync with yourself. And I don't know, does anybody have any questions?
That was great. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. I hope it was helpful. I didn't want to cross boundaries or
No, not at all.
anything.
That's great. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Well,
Hello, Blue.
in the interest of time, I want to make sure that if you are on a time schedule and you need to peace out, that's totally okay. We do have some more hands raised, and I'm fine to stay on for a while, but I won't cover any new content until tomorrow morning, okay? So we're just gonna take questions, answers for the rest of time, and if you need to go, you can totally go. Let's see, Amy.
Sorry, I need to unraise.
Okay, unraised. Let's see, D'Angelo.
Hi. Thank you for this time. And I want to say, you know, I've been having a hard time with my commitment to the program, and I've been trying to. I'm a chaplain, and I've been trying to connect the two so that I can live into this practice more. And so this session has enlightened me about how I can connect the two, but right now, what's happening is that since I am a chaplain and I work with my heart chakra a lot, things like affect my heart chakra a lot. These stories have been affecting my heart chakra, right? And so now, as I know how to move, I'm having concern because my heart is hurting, right? and I know that I want to be I want to do something. I want to heal. I want to be like, you know, here's something to offer, but it's not my space, right? It's not my time. And so sitting with that, I'm trying to see how sound, right, can help me with this.
Yeah, totally. So get yourself a bowl, D'Angelo, just like this. And it's, so really and truly, sound clears energy. So I want to do a psychic weekend so bad because a lot of this stuff has to do with psychic energy. And so hopefully I'll get that on the book soon. But when you have empathy and compassion for us, like you can have that empathy and compassion without internalizing it. Okay, so that's the goal, is I can be compassionate, I can be open, I can be receptive, but I don't have to internalize it, right? So somebody shares something, you know, about their experience, their stuff like that, it can be very, very, very effective just to, like, one strike of a bowl can be very effective. And just like resetting everything. Or like even when we're in a yoga classroom or yoga asana room, that's why a lot of people do 3 ohms, because the ohm will calibrate everybody in the room to the same frequency, right? So, you know, you might just, you know, even silently to yourself, you know, like, you know, ohm, or, you know, if there's, you know, ohm and amen are pretty much the same thing, you know?
Ashe. Or I
yeah.
say.
Yeah,
so it's not that I'm internalizing, right? It's this need to offer, right? Because this is the work that I do, and now, so it's funny because this session has helped, right? In one aspect, because now I can connect my own practice with my practice of becoming a yoga teacher, and also it already was connected to my practice as a yogi, right? And now I want to release. So thank you, because I do have a singing bowl, and I can use that even more when these things come up for me. So so that it's just about like me wanting to offer, right?
Yeah.
and it's, and so I have to be like, that's my stuff, right? Of wanting to offer and to release it. So I thank you that singing bowl can release that want to offer.
Yes. Yeah, and you know, maybe it's too, there's another piece to this, D'Angelo. Maybe it's, recognizing that in just holding the space, you are off, that is your offering, in just holding the space, especially for pastor, clergy, like you're holding the container for the whole congregation, and that in and of itself is an offering of selfless service, right? Good job. I'm glad it's helpful. And I'm also glad that we're having experiences that bring up other things and other questions. So that's really good. So thanks for sharing. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Okay, Ilara?
Hi, Michelle. This is Ilaria.
Excellent.
So I was interested by what you said about the mantra and the fact that the silent mantra is more powerful than a spoken one. It's strange to me because I think like since I remember, since I was a kid, I had sort of like blockage to the fifth chakra, where speaking aloud is really, really complicated, big challenge. And that created a problem in school because I was raised in Italy and every exam is oral, is not written. So, I mean, there are some written one, but the most part is oral. So I really had to learn how to come out. And I was training myself and repeating everything very loud and like exercising the voice, in other words. And I feel like to just be silent in my head is super easy to me. And I always felt that the silent mantra were kind of lame to do. So I wonder if to someone like me, it's better to have like spoken mantra, or if I could have benefit on my voice even with the silent mantra. I'm kind of confused now because I'm like, oh, I can just be silent and do silent mantra, and that's even easier than spoken one.
Sure. So what I think's coming up for me is that, if your throat chakra is a place that you need to do work, then maybe spoken mantra is going to be more beneficial for you. It will make you feel more open. So that's what's coming up for me. How does that feel?
No, it feels good. Like I do feel that whenever I have exercised the voice, then it was easier. But being in my head is very easy. So actually, a silent mantra will come natural to me. So I don't know if I should balance both or I don't know.
I think that, so I like using japa. I like japa. So japa is with your mala beads. And so when we use mala beads, it's interesting because, these have been used for, eons by every different religious group. And so they're all similar. It's all similar. But I like using the mala beads because it puts more intention behind it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there's a way to hold them. So I'll show you guys how to hold them real fast. So your index finger and your pinky never touch the mala beads, okay? They go in between your middle finger and your ring finger, like this. And then you hold them with the middle finger so you don't lose them, so you don't lose count. And then you place your thumb here and you push it back. And then, so every time you say, so I do Ram a lot. So Ram, 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 Ram. And you just go all the way around until you come back to the other side and you never touch the guru bead in the center.
Okay.
So I find that to be super helpful. And I think for you, spoken mantra would probably be really powerful. And do it 108, do a full mala 108. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Elizabeth.
I have a question about, like earlier we did a Zoom sound bath with the gong, and I don't know what y'all have planned for tomorrow, but having that said, since it's not in person, how do you feel about pre-recorded sound baths on like YouTube and things like that?
I think that's fine. I think that's
Okay.
fine. Yep, I think that's fine. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at placement of bowls and using bowls, using one bowl, using two bowls, using many bowls, propping for bowls. So it's going to be a lot of that. And then we're going to go, we still have two more histories to go over. We have the history of, what is it? Gongs. We have the history of Tibetan singing bowls. They actually don't originate from Tibet. And then we have the history of crystal bowls we're going to go over. So we have some history, some theory, and then a lot of practical application, like how do you use these things?
On pre-recorded, is it, I guess what I'm asking is like, which would I choose? Like crystal, the Tibetan bowls, or gong, or does it matter? Is it just what I feel that day?
I think it's what you feel that day. What you're not, I get a lot of questions, people saying, well, can I really mess anybody up with bowls or with sound healing and stuff like that? Not mess anybody up, like not mess anybody up. You might activate somebody's sympathetic nervous system. You might, pull something off YouTube and then find yourself feeling panicked. That's just not the right one for you. Does that make sense? But it won't do any like real damage.
I have one more question on that. Okay, so I have a friend that does sound therapy. She has the crystal bowls, and it's kind of one of those things where I personally know her, and so I kind of sometimes I'm like, ooh, what are you doing? Not necessarily in her practicing, or anything like that. Does it make a difference if you know the person that's doing it, or like if you know what kind of person they are, or?
Well, I think
in other words, are you gonna get anything? Like you said just a second ago, you can't mess anyone up from doing anything. But if you're not necessarily quite aligned yourself, can you maybe pass on something not right to the people that you're doing a sound bath for?
Yeah, so that's an example of transference, and I don't think it would happen. I don't see it happening in a sound bath experience where they are using instruments. But if they were using their voice and they were chanting mantra, that's a different situation.
Okay, she does sing. She doesn't chant anything, but she just openly sings with her bowls. So
that's a different. So mantra is like sounds and specific prayer, and shloka is like the same thing that you would hear if you went to church. It's like a song, right? So shloka can be sung with any different tune to it. Mantra has to be done in a very specific way. Does that make sense? So I would say that you're probably fine. What I'm gathering from you is this person has perhaps questionable personal practices. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess. Sometimes.
I think that it's always a good idea to try to have practitioners, healing practitioners in your life that are coming clean and are doing their work. And if they're not doing their work, there's always a slight risk for transference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're so welcome. Amy, last question before we go to no more recording and just questions.
Just when thinking about buying bowls, I hesitate because I don't, well, do I like them? I like them both, the metal and the crystal. Is the crystal, so if I'm more kapha and and kapha is earth and water, I think?
Yeah.
Then would metal be better for me because that's of earth? Do you know, so are the metal more kapha and the crystal is more, or are they non-related at all?
No, I think you've got it. I think I would say that the crystals are more vata. I would say like crystal bowls are more vata because they have that element of like air and space in them. Like they're different, they're lighter, right, comparatively, and lighter in vibration than like a metal bowl. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then the metal bowls would definitely be more like a kapha. And I think that for me, gongs are more pitta. Like gongs and mantra and stuff are more pitta, but mantra and can also be vata, and mantra can also be kapha because it comes from you. It comes from your you as an instrument, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Dawn.
Hey, Michelle. So I had a question. I've been wanting to buy a singing bowl for like, I don't know, 5 years now or something. It's been a while. And that was before I even had a sound bath. I just kind of was attracted to like how it looked. And then I felt like I'd seen a video somewhere one time, whenever, but I came out of like a very strict religious group. And so as I've gone into my own spiritual awakening, I've tried to do it with like a different level of, or a certain level of, I guess, reverence or whatever, and respect for the things that I don't know yet. So I wonder if like I have to, I kind of feel like I know the answer to this, but like I want to explore it in a respectful way. You know what I mean? Sure. I feel like I have to do a certain amount of due diligence before I embark, but I like already kind of want to play with it. So
sure.
I don't know,
sure.
anything to share based around that.
Sure. Well, I would say, always go with ethically sourced materials. So what people don't know is that a lot of times these things that come out of these, other countries, origin countries, right, are like practically stolen from those people. I mean, like they're not compensated for them. I'm very leery of buying, quote unquote, again, Tibetan singing bowls from, like a company that doesn't tell me where they're sourced from, right? So check and see where they're sourced from, and make sure that they're like fair trade, because that's a thing, like make sure that people are adequately compensated for the craftsmanship. And then with crystal singing bowls are a little bit easier because they actually, I'll tell you guys about this again tomorrow, but they actually came when computers came around. Did you guys know that? They're relatively new, and they used to use them to hold the silica that they were going to create computer chips with. And they would put them into ovens because that would create high heat and the silica would mold together, and then they would use that for computer chips. Isn't that fascinating? It wasn't until the 1990s that they started using singing bowls, like actual like crystal singing bowls, as sound healing. So crystal singing bowls are pretty ethically sourced. They're commercially made and produced. They're not artisan made. So if you're buying something that's artisan made, make sure that it's ethically sourced and that the artisans are getting the credit and the money that they deserve. If you're buying something that's crystal, just make sure it's a reputable company. I've gotten a lot of crystal singing bowls off of like, Amazon and stuff. But again, make sure that you know where it's coming from. Because, and my husband and I talked about this before we opened the studio. It's like, just because crystal singing bowls are inexpensive, well, where are they coming from? Like some are really expensive, some are inexpensive. Are the inexpensive ones made in China? Are the people adequately compensated for them? Are the materials, like adequately, paid for? I mean, sometimes companies, in an effort to make things affordable, take shortcuts, and those shortcuts impact real people. So yeah, just make sure that you take that into consideration.
My other question is, what key or frequency was the bowl that you hit for us?
So this is the root chakra, and this is the one that I started with. And you know what? If you go into a bowl like shop, this is where I got this one. So I always have my little obsidian in here inside my root chakra. Okay. So the root chakra bowl is the first one that I got. And it like called me. Like I went in and it's sort of like buying crystals. Like you just go in and you just put your hand out and like they will call you. Like the ones you're supposed to have will call you. So the bowls are similar. If you can buy them like actually in a reputable place that's local, that's preferred, right? But root chakra is a good place to start.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do you have a suggestion for a shop here? Because I'm in Temple, so I'm only an hour away from you.
So the one that I used to love was on Guadalupe by UT, and they shut down, but I want to say they have a website because they have a warehouse here. So let me try to find it and then I'll get back.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Dee Dee.
Okay, I had to unmute myself. So we're talking about